sailing reverie. I'm back at the boat trying to sort out the galley. So I have to do some woodwork, so I went and bought some marine grade plywood, and man, was that thing expensive. It's like $150 per sheet. So I had to get a couple of sheets, one because I need to reinforce the bulkhead between the galley and the aft locker, and the rest of the material is really to rebuild the structures I need to put the kitchen back in place. Now, one of the things I needed to do is I'm not an architect, so for me to design things I have to kind of visualize. So I made a big template, cardboard template of the footprint of my Dometic dual zone refrigerator. It's a AC DC fridge, and it's really efficient. It works really great, and it has a I can set up a freezer zone and a refrigerator zone, and I have 2 different doors for it. So I built a kind of a mock-up base and the template of the fridge, and I'm going to place that kind of in the location where I would expect the refrigerator to go, and then decide how I want to do the flooring, the supports underneath, and then how can I maximize the space below that where that fridge is going to sit, because it's going to have to be up from the floor in order to be able to use that space for a drawer, for food, or for some other items. The other thing I picked up is this little gizmo you see here, and this is a curve tool. So basically what it is a strip metal or plastic with different bars and lock nuts, so I can set up the curve on the side of the hull and then lock the nuts in place, and I can maintain that curve angle, and that's going to help me cut the wood that I need to put in on the bulkhead. And also when I'm trying to cut the side shelf where the cabinetry is going to go, this is going to be kind of a great tool to be able to do that with. So found this by accident as I was looking for a way to mark and measure the curve so I can transpose this, what I have on the boat, to the plywood. So this should be fun to watch. This is the galley on Reverie. We have the sink, it has a cabinet, there's access where those tools are for a rack, and it extends all the way to the hull. Now the cabinet was in good shape, so I decided to keep it and not demolish it with the rest of the galley, and I probably will take the top portion off. So when I do the countertop is the same all the way through. So this top will probably change, and this face will change, but then I'm going to build a drawer down below here that I can use for additional storage. The cabinetry used to be up here, and now I can go all the way to the hull. So you see where the veneer is off. You can see where the screws of the cabinet, the old cabinet were, so they were flush at this level. But I was wasting probably about 8 inches of space going all the way to the hull. So I'm going to put EVA foam all the way through the hull and down, and that's going to give me some insulation. I'm going to keep, kind of this fiberglass. Nothing I can do about that. It's kind of integrated into the hull and it's tab pretty much throughout, so I'm not going to mess with it. This is really the liner in this boat. So the way the liner works on the boat liner works on the Pearson is they screw it in, they slide it in, and there are bolts below the settee that screw the hull to the liner. So I'm gonna leave that. It really doesn't interfere with what I'm going to do here. Over here, the bulkhead, I started removing the pieces that were damaged by moisture. So what I'm hoping to do today is cut a shape that I can replicate and do a plug for that plywood. And when I do that, that's going to get epoxied in, and then I'm going to sister another whole piece of half-inch marine grade plywood that is basically going to slide in, and I'm going to epoxy it together and screw it together. And that's going to give me back the structural support. And but first I got to peel off the rest of that veneer. The refrigerator is going to take all of that space. So I need to measure and I need to cut this wood down and probably sister another piece to provide some additional support, and create a box to hide this behind the refrigerator. Back in that bulkhead, I'm going to put a shelf where I'm going to put the power pack that's going to supply power for the refrigerator. But what this is showing me is that below, if I do a good job designing this, I should be able to have at least one big drawer used for storage. One of the things that is kind of a pain that I'm dealing with right now is all this veneer is so dried up, it just peels right off. That little section that's left here, I have to heat up to finish removing. So when I apply a sister piece of wood to this bulkhead and epoxy it, it will stick permanently and not have kind of a weak point, which is all this veneer that just peels off. Royal pain. I don't know why boat manufacturers put veneer on areas where it's really, one, not important, and two, it's going to cause problems in the future. So any boat builders out there listening to this, skip the veneer. Just put the wood down and just put the veneer where people can see it and nowhere else. The bulkhead is bigger. It goes back here and it goes higher underneath this border here. The challenge is I don't have a good way to make that big of a piece and get it in here. The companionway, I'm limited to about 3'3", and even if I can slide that big of a piece inside the aft locker, I'm not gonna have enough room to maneuver it to get a full bulkhead, rebuilt. So the advice from the Master Carpenter was to just sister a piece in here, and that should give me the structural support I need. So let me get working on that. Mark the bottom with a marker down here and put a line on the fiberglass down here. That's where the wood is overlapping. So it's going to be something like this. I'm kind of doing it on the back side so you can see it. But what it's going to do is it's going to give me the shape of the board that I have to cut to reset the existing bulkhead. And then I have to do a second full board that's going to be a sister to the bulkhead. So first piece is I need to get this piece done and reset and secure. Then I can do the sister board that I'm going to put in on the bulkhead, and that should get me pretty much set so I can keep building the galley. So this was tab on the back side, so I'm going to tab the new bulkhead actually on both sides. So I have to be careful with this. I don't break it so I can trace it. Keep life simple. So the way they build a liner for the boat, it runs from basically where the locker is, actually underneath the drawer, the stack of drawers on the V-berth, and it runs from that section of the boat all the way back and all the way to the aft locker. You see where it ends back here. See where my finger is pointing? That's the end of the liner. And then they tab that all the way along the hull, and in the galley in here they tab it high because the liner runs high on the boat behind the cabinets. And I guess then they do, you know, cuts for different things that they're putting in. You know, that was to set the ice box. This was where they set the stove. So that is all part of the design. So you have a step in this bulkhead. So it is on this side, on the galley side, but it's on the opposite side on the locker. And it goes up maybe about 3-4 inches high from there, and then it's tabbed all the way on the other side, all the way along. So to try to take that bulkhead out would have been a huge undertaking. And for the most part, the wood is in good shape. It was just this corner here where the water was leaking and the wood was soft. Now, remember I mentioned about the veneer? Well, this is what it looks like. Kind of a pretty cheesy veneer that it literally, as it gets old, it gets brittle, and it basically, that all came out in one sheet. Basically I pulled it with my hand and the whole thing came out. So here's the plug. Basically that's a section I took out of the bulkhead, and right now it's just it's just got a couple of screws to hold it in place. So I have to finish securing it, and then I'm gonna put an epoxy filler in the cracks, and then tab it from the other side of the bulkhead so we can secure that piece along with the rest of the bulkhead. What I did is I used a cardboard box and that tool that I got to grab the curb of the hull, and between those two things build a template in cardboard, then transpose that to the panel, and it came out pretty good. I have room to put filler in against the hull and tab it from this side. I still have a couple of adjustments to make, but it came out, actually I'm pretty happy with it. And all I got to do next is secure the patch board and cover this whole board with thickened epoxy, and we'll put the other board on top and screw it together, and that'll create a nice solid piece of wood as our bulkhead. And then we'll tap the whole thing from this side, and we'll have a pretty secure bulkhead from there on. Hey guys, so to wrap it up, I wanted to show you the templates that I made that you saw, cut already on the video. But I want to show you the shapes and how I got those pieces of wood cut. So this is the marine grade plywood that I acquire. It's very expensive, so every time I'm going to make a cut, I'm trying to maximize the use of the wood. And I line up my templates to use as much of the plywood, or half, let me rephrase that. What I wanted to do is waste very little plywood as possible. So when you buy marine plywood, make sure that it's properly marked so you know that it's legitimate marine plywood. Usually they'll put a seal on it, and also the type of plywood that it is. There's different types and brands. So make sure that if somebody's selling you marine plywood, it's marked as marine plywood, otherwise you may be getting something else. Usually marine plywood is going to have water resistant glue that's used to put it all together. So the first piece was the bulkhead repair. So this is the board, or the section that I cut. You can see that, you know, I was peeling off the wet area, and this whole plywood is layered, so the layers were just coming off. This was the tab for this board, so I cut that off. You can see where the wood is still attached to it, and I make markings so when I transposed it to the plywood, I knew the exact size of what to cut. For the overall bulkhead, that was a little bit more complicated. I used that curve tool that I showed you earlier, and I made a cardboard equivalent. So this piece, with that curve tool, I cut the curve on the cardboard, and then I started working the notches and the angles on the curves on the top side of the bulkhead. Then, you know, we had another piece that goes down here, and that gave us kind of the overall angle. So I'll show you here on top of the plywood, be a little bit easier to see. Alright, so when I got the shapes home, you know, this was the clean edge. What I did is line up the piece on the edge and put in, you know, follow the markings that I had, splinter, there you go, that I had made on the board and the fiberglass, and then I use a Sharpie to mark the shape, and then I use my skill saw to cut that piece, and that's the piece you saw already mounted on the bulkhead. For the second piece, you know, if I had a full sheet, you know, it would be squared on that end, but basically this is what I use to make sure I had the proper curvature for the bulkhead piece. So I make sure I had the notch that's on the side of the hull. This was it took some time to get this put together. I used that curve tool to get the curve angle transposed to the cardboard. I did an extra piece to get the very edge because it goes from round to flat at a certain point on the board. With this, I was able to kind of finish the width of the flat bottom that I wanted to cover, and then I just do a straight line to cut this length. On the top side, you can see that there's a curve in here and an upslope angle, and we have a notch on this side. So once I cut this edge of the cardboard, I started working it up into the cabin liner, and then marking and cutting and marking and cutting until I got the shape just right. And then I was able to transpose that to the plywood with a Sharpie, and between the skill saw and my regular saw, cut the big piece that went into the bulkhead of the boat that you saw on the previous portion of the video. Alright gang, that's it for this episode. On the next episode I'll show you the final product, kind of getting everything put back together into the bulkhead. But this was getting a little long. I figure I stop now and give you guys a break. If you like this videos, please subscribe to our channel, click on the link below, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.